Hi, it's Mary Beth with sacredgrove.com. I am still an animal communicator, but because I love animals, I'm not only concerned with what they're thinking and why they're doing what they're doing, but I'm also concerned with how do we feed our animals well so they stay on the planet longer and enjoy the time they're here. And I'm lucky enough to be talking to Susan Thixton, who has this wonderful group site and also association Truth About Pet Food. And I happened upon her a while back, but I've been paying more attention lately. And so Susan's taken some time to talk to us about getting smarter about the food we feed our animals. And Susan, could you tell me a little bit about maybe why you started Truth About Pet Food and what the purpose of all the organizations behind that, what their purpose is?
This all got started because a pet food killed my dog. And this was 30 years ago. And my dog, who at that time I was a dog trainer and I ran a boarding facility. And my soulmate dog and my business partner, my best friend, got a tumor on her pelvic bone almost overnight. And I took her to my vet, who I didn't know it at the time, but as it turned out, this vet knew more about pet food 30 years ago than most vets do today. And I take her to him, and he said that she's got bone cancer, and I've got about 2 weeks to tell her goodbye. And the bone cancer was probably caused by a chemical preservative used in the food. And I was like, what? And he said, yeah, they use this to extend shelf life. The chemical preservative was called ethoxyquin, and it is still used today in pet food. I didn't even know what shelf life was, really, but I understood it. And back then, this was before the internet and you could send an email. So I picked up the phone and I called the pet food company. And I asked them, the only thing I had nerve enough then to ask them was how long the food would stay fresh. And they very proudly told me that that dog food would stay fresh for 25 years. No kidding. Those words and my dog's cancer and telling her goodbye totally changed my life. This vet loaned me textbooks, and I read everything that he gave me. And he'd share everything he knew with me. When the internet came to be, then you could access papers, scientific papers, and you could read more about it. And then I got to law. And first I started the website in 2006, late 2006, a group of friends, because I would wear anybody out. If you'd stop to talk to me for a few minutes, if you gave me a little crack in the door, we'd be talking about pet food. And so these friends said, start a website. And I went, yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. So I started a website, didn't have a clue what I was doing really, and started getting followers. And then there was a pet food regulatory meeting in the same area as where I live here in Florida. And pet owners said, you've got to go. You've got to represent us. And they sent me to this meeting. And I spoke up and caused trouble at the very first meeting. But, we deserve to know all of these things that we are not told. And I the regulations aspect of it, I really connected with. I'm that person on the highway going the speed limit. Okay. I've always been Susie's safety. So I follow the law, follow the rules. I'm that kind of person. So I really resonated with the laws, and it was appalling to me how many laws are not enforced in pet food. The FDA, our federal government, allows pet food to violate federal law. The states, our state governments, allow pet food to violate law, state law. It's insane, but it's absolutely true.
Okay, can you give me an example of that to make it real for us? Because when I go to your website, there's so much good information. I feel like if I read it all, I would have a doctorate degree. Right? So bring the rest of us with you.
Okay, so this is the worst to me, and I'm going to be a little graphic, so I'm going to warn everybody in advance.
Okay.
Federal law defines food, and this is the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. Federal law defines food as anything that humans or animals eat. So pet food is legally a food. The same federal laws define an adulterated food, one that would be illegal. An adulterated food as, in part, a food that contains a diseased animal or an animal that has died other than by slaughter. Now, the FDA directly, and I have a letter from the FDA stating these exact words, doesn't believe that it is dangerous for our pets to consume ingredients sourced from diseased animals and animals that have died other than by slaughter. In 2018, I believe, Hurricane Florence went into North and South Carolina, and thousands of confinement raised animals, poultry and pigs, turkeys, chickens, and pigs, drowned in their confinement barns. All these areas flooded. These animals had nowhere to go, and they drowned in their barns. Well, when the waters subsided, those decomposing carcasses were allowed to be processed into pet food with no disclosure to us. There are more than a billion, I think it's 3 billion pounds of just dead animal carcasses per year that have to be disposed of. And they dispose of them into pet food, again, with no disclosure to the consumer. You see that bag with a picture of this roasted chicken on the label. It says food, it says made with real chicken, but it's not real chicken. It's real pet food chicken. Every single ingredient in pet food has its own legal definition that's very different from the legal definitions in human food.
May I ask something?
Yeah.
I was just reading the latest where actually was it in North Carolina where some of the workers just died? That makes it even more real to me. And I don't know if you can talk about that, but that blew my head off. You know, I just went.
It's the pet food doesn't only kill pets, it kills people. And this is, I mean, there's been many instances. I've spoken with so many employees of pet food manufacturing. Unfortunately, many of those people are dead now. And it's from their exposures of working in these plants. It was in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and this was a rendering facility. So this is where they take all of the dead animal carcasses to these rendering facilities. And granted, these dead carcasses have to be disposed of. 3 billion with a B pounds of dead animal carcasses every year, they have to be disposed of. But it shouldn't go into pet food. when with decomposing organic matter, a gas forms, and it's hydrogen sulfide, I believe is the name of the gas. And it's very toxic gas. And these workers were exposed. This was just doing their daily job. They were exposed to this gas produced by the very illegal ingredients that the FDA allows to be fed to our pets. And they died just this past Sunday.
Yeah, there's so many heart-rending bits of information in that, with both the animals, the number of animals that passed. You know, I'm a vegetarian because I don't want to participate in the way that animals are treated. But as I told you before we started, my dogs and cats have not agreed to become vegetarians.
Yeah.
I'm making that as a joke, but it's not really. That I don't have as much choice for them as maybe I do for myself. And also, you know, we should worry about the humans involved in all of this. Thank you.
In some of the plants, like we had a mycotoxin. Mycotoxins are mold that is prone to grains. And it can be in human food as well too, but you don't see it in human food because they test more properly. And the rejected grains, the dirty grains, where do they go but pet food? And there was this plant at the pet food level. Okay, they tested the pet food and it was like 5 times above the allowed limit. It was at a lethal limit for dogs. It was a dog food to consume in the pet food. Now imagine the workers in this pet food plant when they unloaded that grain. If it was 5 times as high diluted down in the pet food, imagine how high this deadly mold was that these employees are breathing was in the grain when they unloaded it at the pet food plant. It comes in rail cars, or it comes in trucks. Companies are supposed to test this stuff. There are lawsuits now against this company for the pets. But what about those poor people that worked at that plant? Yeah. And I sent FDA an email and said, look, you know, you guys were the first ones in after this happened, after pets died, unfortunately. You guys were the first one in that plant. And you know, they issued a warning letter. They did all their due diligence, again, after the fact. But what about the people there? Why can't FDA, when they come in and it's an incident like this, where there would be human exposure, why can't they notify the OSHA regulatory authorities? Just a quick phone call, just a 30-second email. That's all I'm asking. Notify the authorities and look out for those people in the plant. And FDA said, no, that's not our jurisdiction.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So we really need, we need everybody to work together, these federal agencies to work together and not only protect our pets, but to protect the people who are making the pet food as well too.
Thank you. And another thing that really shocked me, I think I saw a little cat in the background.
Yes, that's Smidge. Yeah, she's right here under my feet. She'll be jumping up in my lap again soon.
Good. Yeah, come join us. Come have your say. That's really another part that shocked me was that, and I think it's still an issue, is that animals, our pets who have been euthanized, and so they've been injected with things to kill them, become part of pet food at times. And I don't know if that's still happening, but that sounded like that was an issue, and animals died also because they were ingesting the same chemical that puts our, you know, lets our animals go.
The drug used to euthanize animals and not just pets,
Okay.
horses, sometimes cattle, is called pentobarbital.
Okay.
And in like a year and a half time frame, 2017 and 2018, 92, I think it's 92 million pounds of pet food were recalled because of pentobarbital contamination. Okay, so 92 million pounds of pet food contained some type of euthanized animal. This was all canned pet food. And if you laid those cans end to end, I did the calculations. If you laid those cans end to end, they would go from Key West, Florida to Los Angeles, California, back to FDA headquarters in Washington, D.C. That's how many cans of pet food. All of those cans, they weren't discovered. The pentobarbital in those pet foods were not discovered because regulatory was looking out for us. All of those foods were recalled because of the actions of two people, a pet owner and a TV station journalist. A pet owner in Washington State on New Year's Eve 2017 thought she was doing right for her dogs and gave her dogs a canned pet food that said human grade, the best, this is great. And within minutes of her dogs eating this food, they started staggering around, 5 little dogs. She scooped them all up, took them to the emergency center. And one of the little dogs had eaten more of the pet food than the others, and she did not survive.
So I'm going to cry. I'm sorry.
The journalist saw this recall and interviewed the pet owner. And she got to wondering, do other pet foods have pentobarbital in it? And she tested, I believe, 60 something cans, and 11 tested positive for pentobarbital. She turned over her results to FDA and more recalls happened. But this should have been found because regulatory is watching out for us.
Yes.
A euthanized animal should not be processed into a food. That is an animal that has died other than by slaughter. That's one of the categories.
I'm sorry to laugh,
absurd.
but even with, I'm glad the law says that, but any brain, human brain, would say, no, I'm not giving my animal phenobarbital through pet food to kill them before. Okay, I'm just having a reaction. Like, oh, so the law's there and it's not
enforced.
Not important. Okay. So shift me over to what can we do? How do we get smarter? How do we that the whole thing about, I'm starting to look for human grade, but you had written about where that needs to show up in the pet food, that it might just be an advertisement versus this is the real deal. If we're going to start looking for human grade food for our animals, how do we get the real deal?
So pet foods fall into 2 categories, and I've got this all spelled out in detail on my website. If you go to any post, not on the homepage, but any post, there's a sidebar over on the right-hand side. And at the very top of that sidebar, there's several links to learn more. And this is one of them. The second link is also very good for pet owners to read, and it explains the laws and the lack of enforcement of laws. So for one, pet owners, we have to be educated. We have to understand what the law is, what law says that pet food should be. with that understanding, then we can start going, hey, wait a minute. You know, we have better questions to ask. So pet food is regulated as either food or feed. Feed being cattle feed, chicken feed, pig feed. Feed that is sold in 50-pound bags and stored in a barn, not meant to be brought into homes. Okay, but pet food is regulated as feed. But there are products that meet every legal requirement of food, the same as our food. They're formulated for cats and dogs, but the manufacturing standards are the same as human food. And an example of feed manufacturing requirements, I filed a Freedom of Information Act request, which you can do with any government authority, asking for, this was inspection report. The FDA went into a Mars pet care facility. I forget what city, but a Mars pet care facility. And they discovered that, quote, millions of roaches in the food production area. If that was in a human food facility, it would have been shut down on the spot. This Mars facility didn't get a warning from FDA, nothing. They probably talked to them and said, you know, you need to get rid of the roaches in the food production area, but nothing happened. There was no recall, nothing. So there's manufacturing differences. Feed and food, there's differences in quality of ingredients. With food, as example, meats, they all have to be USDA inspected and passed. Meats have to be transported under refrigeration, warehoused under refrigeration. Feed ingredients hold no such requirements. Feed ingredients do not have to be inspected. They can be condemned, inspected and passed. Feed ingredients can be condemned. And feed ingredients are not required to be transported or warehoused under refrigeration. Now imagine how disgusting that could end up being in the summertime.
I can.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's so many differences, yet you can't see on the label. We have asked FDA to label the products accordingly. Cattle feed is not labeled as cattle food. It says feed. Chicken feed says feed. But pet food, they label as food, which is very deceiving to the consumer. So we asked FDA to require these products to be labeled as feed. If they do not meet the legal requirements of food, they should be labeled as feed. FDA said no. But the one product, the only thing we have now is human grade pet foods. Human grade pet foods are required to meet every single standard of human food. They're required to be 100% edible ingredients. Even supplements are required to be, because there's feed grade supplements and then there's human grade supplements. Everything is different in feed. But many pet foods will make human grade claims on their websites. Ignore those. Ignore everything on a pet food website, any kind of marketing claims. If you see those words on a label, that's the only part that regulatory scrutinizes, is the label. If you see the words human grade on the label, then you can trust that that product meets all the legal requirements of a food. If not, it is a feed. Pet owners can also, don't be shy. Ask a company, are your ingredients human grade or are they feed grade? Are your supplements human grade or feed grade? And ask them to prove it. Give me some kind of verification. Ask them for that and see what they provide you. If they're not willing to give you some type of evidence, some type of security, then you shouldn't trust your pet's life with their product. And pet owners can also make their own pet food. All you have to do is find a good recipe. Dr. Karen Becker has recipes. Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney Habib. I can send you a link of
That would be
where,
great. Thank you.
yeah, where
I'll put it in when I post it.
yes, and when you follow a good recipe, it's no problem. I joke, and it's not really a joke, but my cooking has never killed anybody. Pet food can't make the same claim. Okay. So, and if you really want that 100% trust, really the only way you're going to do it is if you make it yourself. And it's not rocket science. It's really not. You do have to make sure you can't just throw some hamburger and some vegetables together and call it a day. You do have to make sure that you're getting all the right vitamins and minerals and in the proper levels. But it's not as hard as you think it is. All you need is the right recipe.
Okay. So let's be honest, I'm not a cook. You could ask my husband. He'll clearly tell you. But so but I'm going to think about it. In the meantime, I know you have a list of food that has met standards, and that you have gone through what looks like some rigorous questioning about how their food is made, and it is commercial rather than homemade.
I'm 100% consumer supported. I take no money from industry whatsoever, zero. Unlike what some in industry have said at different times, which aggravates me to no end. But to keep a roof over my head, I have to make money. And I do this with the list. This was the most common question that pet owners ask me. Just tell me what to feed. Just tell me. Well, I can't. You know, everybody's circumstances are different. Everybody's, personal opinions. They're all different. The best I could do was make this list of pet products that I personally would trust to give my own pets and do give my own pets. So this started, I believe, in 2012, and I do one every year. And the companies have to go through a lot. I'm just now starting to work on the 2022 list. It takes about 3 months to get all the data. There's, I don't know how many questions. It's like 3 pages of questions initially that I send out, and they have to answer. Based on their responses, I might have to ask more questions for clarification. And then based on their responses, as example, if they say all of our ingredients are human grade, or, and this is an important one to me, all of our meats are raised from humanely raised animals, not confinement farm animals, animals that got to see sunshine and got to be out in a pasture. And yes, that's significantly important to me for my animals, and when I can afford it for myself. So they have to provide me verification of that. They first answer the questions, and then I go, okay, you got to prove it to me. And they provide me with documents, and it's massive, the amount of documents that they have to send and that I have to go through, and I read every single one of them. A company last year, in their questions, they answered everything's human grade, but in their documents, I found out that one of their ingredients, and it was just one, but one is too many, was feed grade. And so, I get the verification, and it's not foolproof, guaranteed, but it's the best we have. I feel like it's the best I can do at this point. And then I decide whether it's true. Would I trust this product based on all this information? Would I trust my pets' lives with this pet food? And if the answer is yes, then they go into this document and it sells throughout the year, supporting me in this work that I do.
Yeah, cool.
And
Yeah,
it's
I know
called
it's
The List.
The List.
And it's
Yep.
on truthaboutpetfood.com.
Yeah, I bought it because I wanted to look again and see how close we can come. This has been really great. Very hard discussion, but the truth is necessary. It's just necessary. Thank you so much. I would like to ask just a small, I hope this is a small one, but for those of us who, like, I got 5 animals. And so what would seem like a not bad investment for one animal, you multiply it by 5. And of course, this good food generally costs more than drive-through. You know, it's the same with human. Where would you tell us to start if we can't just switch right over? Are there a few things that could help?
Well, you don't, you don't have to go from A to Z in one step. Okay. If all you can do is give some human grade pet food, just do some, a tablespoon a day, 2 tablespoons a day, just do some every day. Try to. Some products are more affordable than others. It just kind of depends. Keep looking, don't give up, and making it yourself. I promise you, that's why I cook for mine. And it's kind of yucky when you buy a container of chicken livers. It's kind of yucky, yes, but it's so much more affordable than buying it commercially. And you can watch when something's on sale. As we get to Thanksgiving time, turkeys, a whole turkey is cheap. It gets real low cost per pound, a price that you can't get any other time of year. So you can make a bunch of pet food with that meat that's on sale, and it's human grade. But again, you got to follow that recipe. Don't just randomly throw things in there and assume you got it right. You have to follow a good recipe.
Thank you. I mean, I'm thinking about it now.
You'll have a hard time with the chicken livers. It is tough. We have a tough time with it too, but I do think of those poor chickens. It's awful. I've read far too much about everything in food, the animal aspect of it. I know far too much, and it is sort of haunting, but like you said, our animals, cats are meat eaters. It's just that simple. They are. So we chose to have them in our lives, so we've got to do right by them.
We do. All right. Susan, thank you so much. This was incredibly useful, as hard as it is to hear. This was just such good information. I will if you send me the information, I'm going to include it in the video so people can go find it, and it'll also be in part of the blog so people can find out more. And let me just say, folks, if this calls to you, go support her. There's an association we can do. I bought The List.
The association it's the only official consumer association. So regulatory authorities wouldn't listen to Susan from that blog, truthaboutpetfood.com. It's not a blog, but that's how they looked at it. And they required me to start a stakeholder organization that had a separate bank account, a separate website, and they even required me to make it that members had to log in. So I jumped through all of their hoops. I did everything, and they still don't listen to me, but it is an official stakeholder organization. The support that we get through the association sends us to the pet food regulatory meetings because they're expensive. It's twice a year. It's still twice a year now, but it's like $550 just to walk in the door. Once we can get COVID gone, it's travel 2 times a year. You have to find some place, your hotel. It's very expensive. And we try to send 2 of us to each meeting to be the voice for consumers, screaming that we need law enforced. But
thank you for doing that.
So the association does that.
I will, we'll put that information down too. I'm just, so honestly, what I'm kind of like talking, you know, this is for you folks to keep your animals on the planet longer. And if you like what Susan's doing and you want to support her, figure out a way to do it. That's all, you know, this is for real stuff, you know. Thank you, Susan. Thank you so much. And so just let's see. We want to thank everybody for being here. So thank you so much.